I'm Alex Sanderson. When Natural Born Stanley first came out, it began as a mere movie. And now, with the sequel, Stanley 2: The Legacy, it has become a phenomenon. But before we see the continuation of the Stanley saga, I will be speaking with Justin Duffy, who plays the part of Mateo, David Haverty, who plays the part of Father Hazzard, Robert Wilkins, who plays the part of Thornton Muggins, Jason Dunkman, who plays the part of Little Billy, and Frank Lepore, who plays the part of Tootie. Here with us, Jack Venturo, the creator, writer, and director of the film, is going to talk about it. Jack, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, now before we begin, why don't you give us a quick summary of Natural Born Stanley and how it ties in with the sequel?
Well, Natural Born Stanley takes place a year before Part 2. It just starts out with the character Jack and Mateo and Stanley. It's just about a guy who has a bad day in school. He fails school, gets struck by lightning, gets beaten by his mother, and homeless on the street. And, well, I mean, he just decides to make a puppet for revenge, and, well, things don't quite go so right because the puppet comes to life and escapes and starts a killing spree.
Now, I must ask you, how did you come up with all this?
Well, we all grew up with Jim Henson and the Muppets. We all had a fascination with puppets when we were growing up. I just had a pair of gloves and eyes and a camera and a piece of paper, just started writing down a story, and well, the rest is history, really.
Well, that's fascinating. So what about the casting?
Well, the cast, I write down, while I'm writing a screenplay, I write down the lines and the costumes and the setting, thinking of the people that I want to be the characters. But really, at the end, it all just works out.
And of course, we'll see the characters develop and mature from the script to the silver screen. Now, Jack, what about making a trilogy, like a third part to kind of end of the chapter?
Well, I really don't think I'm going to make it into a Part 3, Alex, or even a trilogy. I have some other projects I'm working on now, and I'm concentrating on those right now. And I really don't think I can kill off any more of these wonderful characters.
Well, I understand you have to get back to the studio, so thanks for joining us, Jack.
Thank you for having me.
And now with us is Justin Duffy, who plays the part of Mateo.
Yes, thanks for having me.
How did you like playing the part of Mateo? And tell us about any character changes.
Well, I was glad he chose me again to do the Mateo part for Part 2. You know, I really enjoyed it in Part 1. You know, I lived the character throughout the movie. In Part 2, we have several changes. You know, as you can see, I have 4 medals as opposed to 1. The costume is different, you know, somewhat, the whole costume. And, you know, the hair is 2 strands sticking down. And I had this big scar on me this time. You know, because before, you know, the finances were low, so we couldn't, like, get a, you know, make a good effect on it. So we got a real scar this time, and you know, it's really going to look good.
What were some of the new additions to the cast?
Well, some of the new additions as a part of the cast, well, they're all new members of the movie. You got Robert Wilkins, who's doing Thornton Muggins. You know, he's the gravedigger at the graveyard, who shows him Stanley's mother. And you got David Haverty, which is an asset to the whole Part 2. You know, he explains where Stanley really came from. And you got Frank Lepore, who's my sidekick. You know, he plays Tootie. And you got Jason Dunkman, he's the key death sequence in this whole movie. He starts off the new puppets, so, yeah.
Now your sidekick, Tootie, how does he fit into the whole film?
Well, in the story, you know, Frank Lepore, who plays Tootie, he's actually my agent when I wrote the book, Cut the Bastard's Eyes Out. And so, you know, he was my agent, he produced the book, and, you know, he just took interest in the whole idea, so he just kind of became my sidekick from there.
Were there any problems shooting the film?
Well, as far as Frank was concerned, you know, my sidekick, there really wasn't because he was on time. No, really, there wasn't any problems. We got along fine, and, you know, the shooting went great.
What was it like being on the set in character and then behind the camera shooting?
Well, you know, one day I'd be just doing, you know, Mateo, I'd be doing a part, and then, like, the next weekend we'd film, you know, I'd just be back doing the camera. So it's, like, kind of a drastic change from, you know, being on character, being used to being in the film whenever you're shooting, as opposed to, like, being behind the camera, filming what the other characters are doing.
And now a question for all of us. If there is to be a Part 3, will you be playing the part of Mateo again?
Well, if Jack Venturo does make a Part 3, I would like to think that he would come to me for the part of Mateo, because, you know, I've lived it for Part 1 and Part 2 now, and I couldn't imagine anyone else, you know, topping that. So until he writes the script, I guess we'll never know.
One final thing before you leave. Why don't you say a line from the movie?
All right. I cut the bastard's eyes out!
Thank you very much, Justin.
Thank you for having me.
And now joining us is David HAVERTY, who plays the part of Father Hazzard.
Hello.
Being a newcomer to the Stanley saga, how do you feel your part plays his role?
Well, I think it's the most important role in the entire film. And I think it was the most challenging role in the entire history of filmmaking, and I was glad to obtain it.
Well, before you go, could you give us a line from the movie, from your part?
What's my motivation? I need to know my motivation. I can't just perform any line from a movie just because I have nothing behind it. I need character structure. I need the analysis of what I'm going to be feeling while I'm saying that line.
Well, maybe next time.
Would you like some Java?
Maybe next time.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us, David.
You're welcome.
Joining us now is Robert Wilkins, who plays the part of Thornton Muggins.
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you, too.
Thanks.
Robert and I have been friends for a very long time, and speaking of, I saw our old kindergarten teacher at the bank
Well, you did.
just last week. She's doing very well.
She is?
Yes.
Oh, I haven't seen her in a long time.
It's been a while. Tell us about the preparation for your role in the movie.
Well, see, I had to study a lot of undertakers because, look at this part. I mean, it's just not me. I usually play the romantic type guy in movies, but
Right.
this was actually probably my toughest role in a long time. I mean, they took us out and we digged and digged and digged on the graves, and it was pretty tough.
Tell us about how Jack came to you for the part of Thornton Muggins.
Well, see, I was in the backyard one day burying my dog, and he drove by in his black Camaro, and he just stopped and asked me if I'd do the part, because I guess was a good digger. So.
Now, before you go, one line from the movie.
One line from the movie. Yeah.
Thornton Muggins! Dig, 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 dig.
Thanks again, Robert.
No problem.
Good
We'll
to
do
see you
lunch
again. Yes,
sometime, okay?
do lunch, absolutely.
All right, yeah, sure.
And here we have Frank LEPORE plays the part of Tootie. Now, Frank, as a part of Tootie, you're playing a sidekick. How do you feel about that? I noticed you wear all black. Is there a story behind that? Well, before you go, why don't you tell us a little about yourself? Your history, where you were born, your mom. Really? Before you go, can you play a part from the movie? Well, thanks for joining us, Frank. Maybe next time. Lastly, joining us is Jason Dunkman, playing the part of Little Billy.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Alex.
I noticed when you were shooting on location there, you didn't have any shoes on.
No, I didn't. It was hell. I was always constantly stepping on sand spurs, rocks, so I had cuts and bruises all over me, but it was worth it.
Playing the youngest character in the movie, how did you feel working with the cast?
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. Today I just met the cast, and frankly, I don't like them. Especially that guy right there.
Now, before you go, why don't you play a line from the movie for us?
Oh, sure. What would you like me to do?
Well, anything that you feel is best.
Okay. Let's see here.
How about
This
the
scene?
best
How
scene?
about this scene?
That's great.
Okay.
Oh, jeez. All right, that's enough. Time for my interview now.
Now joining us is Stanley, playing the part of Stanley. Stanley, pleased to meet you.
Pleasure's all mine, Alex.
Now, you haven't been making any public appearances lately.
Oh, well, I've been doing this show business stuff for quite some time. It's been a couple of years, and I don't feel the need to go into public. I mean, I'm too important now. I've done 2 movies. I mean, come on, feature films.
What about the other puppets in this sequel? How do you feel about working with them?
Well, Eddie's okay. I mean, I like the green hair. I mean, you gotta admit that.
Green
but,
hair is...
well, yeah, I'm talking, right? Uh-huh. All right. But Sealy, I mean, how about, I I mean, you gotta admit, she's a hottie. Arrgh!
Now, Stanley, about the glasses, people have been wondering. Are you okay? I mean, are you going to be able to do another movie? What's going on?
Oh, well, right now I'm kind of taking a break, you know. I mean, I haven't seen any scripts come up. I mean, yeah, some have been mailed to my house and everything, but they're just not that good. The glasses, I really can see. I just want to look intelligent for the interviews. Where are you? Oh,
Well, before we go here, why don't you do a line from the movie?
what are you talking about?
A part, a line, a sentence?
But that's me. That's what I do. That's my thing, man. I
Well,
mean,
demonstrate it for all of us right here.
I'm demonstrating it now. That's myself. I'm just acting like myself. I'm not acting. That's me.
Well, it's a pleasure meeting you again. Thanks for joining us, Stanley.
Yeah, whatever.
And now, sit back, relax, and get ready for the sequel to Natural Born Stanley. Jack Ventura's definitive vision, Stanley 2: The Legacy.